Hi everyone, it's Victor speaking, and I'm here again today with Barbara. And as we promised, we are going to carry on with our series. We are going to be examining the natal Saturn in certain signs and certain houses and how it will affect you in 2020. So, as we also said in the last set of video, we are going to be starting with the cardinal energies because they are going to be feeling the most. So in the previous video, we already discussed how Aries people are affected. And today, let's talk about Cancer. So how are you doing, Barbara?
Hi, Victor. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm very good. I'm excited about Cancer because actually it's going to be a little bit tough for them as well. I mean, again, going back to the historical part, Saturn was in the sign of Cancer in 1944 till 1946 August. And then the next period was in 1973 July till 1976 June. But actually, within that period, Saturn was twice in the sign of Gemini. So those who were born between 74 January till April, or people who were born between 75 September till December, they actually might have experienced in a little bit of a different energy. So they should be listening to the upcoming videos later on. So, what do you think Saturn means in the sign of Cancer?
Well, Saturn in the sign of Cancer, it's in its detriment. And basically, what detriment means is that it's also in a place that it's not comfortable. Saturn's at home in Capricorn and Aquarius, as we talk, and exalted in Libra. And so in Cancer, it's its furthest away from home. And Cancer is a sign that's ruled by the moon, which impacts your emotions. So Cancer is, it's about nurturing, it's about families, about foundations, and it likes to express its feelings. But with Saturn there, it creates a coldness, it creates a separation, it creates a dryness. And so this is a very difficult position for people with Saturn and Cancer.
Yeah, that's right. What I have really experienced, especially with the moms, they tend to be taking on so much responsibility within the family and they forget about themselves.
Yeah.
And one of the things this generation might need to learn is how to have fun, how to go back to their roots a little bit, and then figuring out who they are, going back to their core essence. Now, the reason why, for instance, people who were born, especially in 1975 summer, they are going to be feeling this the most, especially if you were born after the 10th of July, because at that time there was quite a hard aspect going on in the sky. Saturn was squaring Jupiter and also squaring Uranus as well. And what happens now, if you've got that in your natal chart, basically it is forming like a T-square. And now Saturn and all the energy alignment coming into the sign of Capricorn, it's basically going to be forming something called a grand cross. And this is one of the hardest, toughest aspects in astrology to deal with. So that's why we've decided to make a separate video on each sign because, Cancer really needs to look out for themselves. Yes. And those people actually who were born in 1975, actually they are in the 10th profected house, 10th profected year as well. So it really talks about my persona versus my profession, my life path, where I am heading. It could be a really tough energy. So what we will do with Barbara today is we're going to go through each of the rising signs, and then she's going to shed a little bit of a light what you could be expecting with this grand cross. But overall, I would just say to those who were born with a 10th house profected year in 1975, just watch out for loss of a job or redundancy. Maybe you have got the feeling to break away from your profession and start something new. you might be experiencing something to do with your children as well. Maybe your children are not able to find a job and then you have to step in and help. Also, you might feel restricted to be able to move on with your life because you feel lonely. So that would be the general feeling for people born, especially in the middle of 1975. But Barbara is going to break it down for you. So, and this is not only for people who were born in 1975, everyone who has got Saturn in the sign of Cancer, but those people will feel the most who have got their personal planets or Saturn after the 22nd degree of Cancer. So take it away. How do you feel about Aries rising?
Well, let's talk about Aries rising. So with Aries rising, this this energy is going to be happening. So their natal Saturn is going to be in their 4th house, and the transit is happening in their 10th house. So there's creating the opposition. And so oppositions are about pulling, or like a pushing and pulling, right? So there's this tension there, and 4th house is about home, and the 10th house is about career. So with this transit for Aries rising, there might be some tensions or standoffs with trying to rebuild and transform your career. It might create some tensions with some older folks or people of authority figures, who maybe your parent or your spouse if they're older, or boss, and just trying to work through that energy. And Saturn and Pluto could be bringing up some old emotional issues as well, because it's okay. So with Saturn and Cancer, they're sometimes with a parental figure. The childhood could have been, they could have experienced some very coldness from the family or the parent or what have you, and this could bring up some of those issues and they're wanting to kind of get it out, because Cancer it likes to talk through its emotions, so it's been bottling things up. So maybe it's time to get those things out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you did mention that opposition is like a force. We tend to be projecting things with opposition onto others. So maybe it's coming from your own personal family, and then you're projecting that onto your own, parents and so forth. And as you said, it might just bring up a memory, what you had.
Sure. Because Cancer rules memory,
Yeah.
So they're going to hold on to it. They tend to remember a lot of things. I have a lot of people who are Cancers in my family and friends, and they have really good memories, I would say.
Oh, surely. I've noticed with Cancer that they have got the tendency to step one ahead and then two backwards.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if it's very, very prominent in their chart, they get nowhere. And I love bringing astrology with tarot cards together, because if you think about the moon cards, which is number 18, so adding those up, that's number 9, which is talking about hermits. But if you have got the picture in front of you, actually you see a crab, a huge crab in the lake, trying to climb out or trying to come out, but there are 2 dogs there barking. And the crab is afraid of the dogs. And the crab needs to realize that they are a lot bigger than the dogs and actually can protect themselves.
Yeah. That
Cancer
like
is very good at protecting others,
yeah.
But they are a little bit reluctant to protect themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about Taurus rising?
All right. So Taurus rising. So with Taurus rising, the natal Saturn is happening in the 3rd, and the opposition is created in the 9th house.
Yeah.
So with the 3rd house, Saturn, Cancer and Saturn, Saturn and Cancer, you might have some difficulty with, getting comfortable with people in your environment, or maybe your siblings might have been, kind of a little bit cold. There might be some distance between you and your siblings or people in your environment. And maybe you're wanting to get away. You know, ninth house is about travel, you know, so maybe it could be, you know, they could be thinking about the extreme of like just running away. And maybe, you know, this transit is about just bringing it back to center, you know, because Cancers, they love to be close to home, you know, that energy love to be close to home. So the reality is that they may think about going to the extreme, but the best thing is to maybe just to get away and come back and, you know, and take a higher standpoint. This with Taurus rising, it could also maybe bring about some legal matters related to foreign travel, you know, some opposition. It could bring about, let's see, some legal issues, documents related to that. Or maybe they're just wanting to just travel abroad and there's just some opposition, you know, in that regard.
Yeah. And you know, for the newer generation, because also Saturn has been in the sign of, sorry, Saturn was in the sign of Cancer in 2005 till 2005 as well. Mm-hmm. So for the younger generation, maybe it's going to cause a little bit of a trouble in their studies. Mm-hmm. And if we really think about it, this is the time of GCSEs. So again, maybe it's all about the help the mom can provide for them, mm-hmm. in order for them to achieve better, you know, grades. Also, third house rules writing skills. Mm-hmm. So maybe because Cancer actually loves writing, and in traditional, actually, Moon talks about the writing rather than Mercury.
Wow.
Yes. And especially if your moon has got an applying aspect to planets, then it is an indication that you are good at writing about those subjects what moon is applying towards. Mm-hmm. Anyway, maybe some of the people who have got Saturn in Cancer wants to publish their book, and they might be experiencing some issues around those. Third house rules cars. So you need to be watching out on the roads, especially I would say that would be the case when Mars goes retrograde, so from September till November onwards, because this position could be something to do with car accidents as well, or maybe the car breaks down, problem with the cars. Third house talks about social media. Actually, your social media accounts might get hacked. Oppositions, we're talking about other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a possibility. But you know, one of my favorite explanations for Saturn being in the sign of Cancer is that the mom couldn't stand up for themselves. Somehow, even it could be, a mom could be having that personality like stuttering. As a native, you might have had some speech impediment going on, because the third house gets triggered. Mm-hmm. And it is talking about you wanting to say something so badly, but you feel choked by someone else. And this energy could come onto the surface this time around in 2020 again.
Wow, for sure.
How about Gemini?
Gemini. Okay. For Gemini risings, so this natal Saturn is going to be occurring in the natal second, and the opposition is going to be occurring in the 8th house. So the second house is all about your finances, your livelihood, your possessions, things that you value. And the 8th house is about other people's money, and it's about death and inheritance. And so maybe there could be some issues over inheritance from, you know, a parent. Maybe if there's some fighting over, you know, those resources. The 8th house can be, the transit in the 8th house can also be about intimacy and merging, you know, with a partner. And so there might be some imbalances with expressing that, because again, with the Saturn in Cancer, there's some restriction there. And maybe this may be about taxes, about who, there might be some imbalances about who's paying for what, you know? And
Yeah, surely. You know, yeah, definitely it could be causing some financial matters.
yeah.
Now, because eighth house is a business house, we might be talking because the reason why eighth house talks about business is because actually you are relying on other people's money. And that happens when you've got a business. And now this opposition actually might be an indication that you will have a checkup going on your business. Like they are going to be checking your bookkeeping methods, for instance. And the opposition could be an indication that they might find a fault in it. Eighth house unfortunately talks about infidelity. And the second house is the house of confidence. Some of the Cancer rising might be experiencing such thing, especially because Mars is going to be squaring at the end of the year from the fifth house. So, yeah, just watch out for that because you might be getting a bad news.
And one other thing about the partner's resources, so with Pluto there could be some sudden like reversals or something that changes that have come about with a partner's resources where there might have been restrictions before. There, you know, or so where they weren't able to contribute. So there might be some big changes that come about with this.
Yeah, surely that could be the case. How about Cancer rising?
All right, so Cancer rising. So this is happening in their first house. That's where their natal Saturn is, and the opposition is occurring in the seventh house of, you know, relationships, your contracts, relationships with other people, and so with Saturn being in the first house, you know, Cancer is a sign that likes to, well, it can be very kind of standoffish because it's a feeling sign. So it needs to be able to trust, you know, a people. So, so there might be some breaking down with a partner. So a partner may have come into their life to help break down those barriers that they've had, those long-standing barriers that might be rooted in their childhood, you know. It might bring about a long-term partnership, you know, faded long-term partnership. Or maybe even the reverse, maybe the letting go of
exactly
a long-term partnership.
Actually, one of my friends who actually was born in 1975 in August, one of her old flame came back into her life. Mm-hmm. And anyway, she had troubles in her relationship beforehand. And they got together with the old flame, and that they are living a happy life. And on the second date, they started talking about engagement, having a child. So it goes at full intensity. Yeah. And I've reminded them, watch out, because these planetary alignments might suggest, you know, an intense start, and then it just deflates a little bit. But, you know, the natal Saturn goes into the seventh. Yes. So it looks like you are approaching the partner. Mm-hmm. So if you are single, maybe Cancer rising, be a bit brave. Knock down those barriers. It's okay to go out there and date with people, not a problem. You can even stop people on the street and, you know what, can I get your phone number? Because you need to release your old patterns, the old ways you did things before. Yeah, you might be experiencing something to do with your grandparents. The first and the seventh house rules grandparents. This could be the case, probably especially for the younger generation. And just watching out, because Saturn rules depression. And in the first house, natally, you've got the tendency to attract negative entities around you. But you also have got the capability of blocking them out. It's your choice. I think I said that with the last video as well. I don't think Saturn is the greatest malefic. I think actually Saturn is a planet which defines us. Mm. Yeah, how do you feel about it? Yeah.
Well, with the Saturn, with K2 being there, we didn't talk about that, but just with it being there, it's about letting go of some of those old habits. So with the example that you gave earlier with the two people coming back together, this might actually be good for them because maybe they've had time to think about their past issues, and it's helping to restabilize and cement that relationship into maybe something permanent and long term.
Exactly. Actually, they were in just love with each other for 2 years, but they never got together 14 years ago.
Wow.
And you know what's interesting about the 14-year period? Because that's a Saturn period.
Yeah.
Saturn forms an aspect with your natal Saturn every 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, it was a conjunction. Now it's an opposition. And at that time, they couldn't get together because both of them had their partners.
Yeah.
And now everyone is free, so they met again. So Saturn does that wonder sometimes.
Tell them I'm rooting for them.
Oh yeah, I'm rooting for them as well. Yeah, let's move on and let's see what Leo rising can expect.
Okay, with Leo rising, your natal Saturn is going to be in your 12th house, and the opposition is going to be occurring in the 6th house. So interesting enough, even though Saturn is in its detriment in Cancer, it finds planetary joy in the 12th house. So the 12th house is all about, the loss and sickness and confinement, hospitalization. So maybe, or even also maybe self-undoing habits. So maybe there's been some emotional issues that have been, plaguing this person, and it's impacting their health. So, and now it's time so with the transit being in the 6th house, it's time to transform your life. Stop, taking on those, just basically stop doing those things that have been harming you. Those repeating thoughts, because, the 12th house is all about like your, subconscious things that happen to you. And also maybe also about enemies. It could be about maybe finding out about someone who might have not have had your back, and confronting them, because the 6th house is about enmity, and so this also could be bringing about, with Saturn ruling, actually for Leo, it also rules the 7th house, right? So if you're already in a committed relationship, similar to what, the Cancer rising, maybe Saturn is in the 12th house of the 7th. So there could be maybe a loss or a divorce coming about. Or maybe this person might seek out some professional counseling, or they might want to start volunteering in maybe hospitals or prisons, or just maybe, because that's the 6th and the 12th house is about the serving and suffering, right?
Yes, that's right.
So maybe they might be inspired to serve others who aren't in the best of health, or in the, because that's what Cancer wants to do. And as a result, I think that these Cancer individuals will also heal themselves if they are maybe serving others through issues that they may be, emotional issues that they may be dealing with.
Oppositions are pretty much about balancing. Mm-hmm. Opposition is a Libra energy. So you have to get the scale, put the pros and the cons on, and then seeing where that scale is tipping over. And oppositions are always reminding us to have a look what we tend to be overdoing and what we tend to be not paying attention to. And those two need to be aligned. Now, yes, I agree. In traditional astrology, 6th house is pretty much about your health. But I also believe there is more to the 6th house. It's more about situations which making you sick. Mm-hmm. And it's not just in a literal sense. Mm-hmm. Anything which is poison in your life, it just needs to be get rid of. Now, 6th house rules rents, Cancer rules properties. You might be having some tenant issues there. So you could be watching out for that. your tenant might be doing some illegal stuff. And don't be shocked if someone is knocking on your door. This could be also the case there. But yeah, I agree. The main message here is to have a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
How about Virgo?
Well, with Virgo, Virgo, this transit is going to be happening in your natal 11th. Well, the natal 11th is where Saturn is, and then the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is happening in the 5th house. So, you know, the 11th house is all about your friends, your social networks. It's the house of good spirit and hopes and wishes. And so with Saturn being there, the person might be a little bit standoffish with having friends, you know. So, but with the transit being in the opposite house of fun, maybe someone is trying to pull you on the other end. They're trying to get you out of your, of being isolated, and they're trying to get you to have more fun, and maybe it might be your children if you have any. So the children might be helping to with transforming or creating balance with the Virgo rising, with regard to just being able to relax, because Virgos, they love to work, and so so maybe that's what this is about, about finding balance of work and enjoyment.
Also this 5th and 11th axis talk about children as well. So maybe your long-term goal is to have a child.
Yeah.
But the current transits are telling you that we are not doing that great financially. We need to reconsider things and so forth. And actually, this could be, again, an indication here that take some risks in life. You're always going to be coming up with some excuses anyway. That's exactly what that Pluto Saturn trying to tell you. Yeah. So if we're talking about children, just go for it. I think that's going to be a transformational power for you. Again, interestingly enough, the 2nd and the 8th house is going to get activated by the Mars energy later on at the end of the year. And 8th house talks about pregnancy as well. So I'm expecting to see some Virgo rising actually to fall pregnant. Also, your children might be having issues of choosing direction. What do I want to become? Who shall I be? What job would I be able to enjoy? And we parents probably have got a tendency to push them.
Yeah.
And it just talks about your free will. Let your child decide.
Yeah.
Because it's their life. Of course, give them as many advice as you can. Help them, but don't try to push them, because that opposition talks about a pull and the push energy. Yeah. 5th house rules business. Mm-hmm. So actually it might be talking about your own business, or maybe the idea of creating a business. Now all these transits are reminding you to go back and visit your original plan. Yeah. Go back to the roots and have a look if you really walked around every single angle, because you might be setting up for failure. So remember, Saturn is the measuring cup, slowly but surely. How about our Librans?
Libra, all right. So with Libra, this transit, well, the natal Saturn is going to be in the 10th house, and the opposition is going to be in the 4th house. So it's the reverse of Aries, right? So with the natal Saturn being in the 10th house, Cancer rising, they might, because Saturn's about your fears as well, right? And so there might be some fears about staying gainfully employed, and there might be some push and pull towards, the transit might be pulling you towards focusing on your home life. instead of, working, grinding and working so much to protect your family, because, Saturn, Cancer is all about protecting your family and providing for the family. And maybe they've been doing this so much that it's wearing them down. And the family, and then it's just like, okay, you know what? Let me just, try to create some balance, and maybe I need to be home more, or maybe there might be some issues with a parent in the home. It could be creating some tensions with, again, with authority figures. And let's see. So
And maybe,
go ahead.
no, I just wanted to say that maybe it's going to be something happening in the family which is going to be affecting your private relationship as well. So it pretty much looks like that this year is all about balancing.
Yeah.
Working, spending time with the family, plus looking out for your relationship as well. And then maybe creating a triangle between these three. I think that's the most important message for Libra.
I agree.
How do you feel about our Scorpio rising people?
All right. Well, Scorpio rising. So this, your natal Saturn is going to be in your 9th house. And the transiting Saturn Pluto is going to be in your 3rd house. So 9th house is all about your teachers, your guru, your faith, traveling, foreigners. 3rd house is about, your immediate environment, your siblings, learning new skills, media. So with Cancer rising, Scorpio rising, Saturn in the 9th house, this might bring about some fears related to travel. Maybe, they haven't, maybe throughout their life, they've been afraid to, branch out. And so with the transit in your 3rd house, maybe it's just thinking about taking some short trips first to, branch out. With the transit being in your 3rd house, if you've been having difficulty or there's been some delays with education, maybe it's time to learn some new skills. And or if you've been traveling and you're wanting to just if you're planning some short trips, Saturn Pluto could bring about delays or restrictions or opposition related to the planning of those details.
9th house rules visa. Mm-hmm. And it's worth checking out whether the documents you posted, for instance, actually got there where they should be at. Because, as I said, opposition usually talks about a 3rd party. So actually the post office could easily lose your documents, which could cause trouble. And that's why you might be feeling restricted by not being able to travel, for instance. Yeah, 3rd house really much talks about commuting. And now the natal Saturn is popping into, the 3rd house. So again, these natives need to be watching out anything to do with cars, vehicles, and so forth. Yeah, actually, if you are planning to open up a new business, again, the documents can be a little bit of an issue there. Because 3rd house does rule business as well, especially something to do with startups. How about Sagittarius?
All right, Sagittarius rising. So with Sagittarius, the Saturn, your natal Saturn is going to be in your 8th house. And the transiting Saturn and Pluto is going to be in your 2nd house. All right, so with Saturn being in the 8th house, this might bring about, fears with intimacy, because, Saturn in Cancer, it's coldness, and in Cancer, wants to express it, but there's blockages there. And so maybe there's a partner or someone is helping to bring out those issues, maybe with self-confidence as well. And maybe there's a restoration, a rebalancing, recalibrating of, the person's self-confidence in themselves, because that's what 2nd house themes of the second house is all about your self-worth as well and things that you value. And the second house feeds the first house. So it's important to have a lot of self-confidence in oneself. And that may be what this transit is about for Sagittarius rising.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, you might just feel that you would like to change your career, and then it's quite hard for you. Maybe actually you are getting stuck at work because of financials. You might be earning quite well, but you don't enjoy it. And maybe these transits are going to be a reminder that money talks, but this is not the most important stuff. And actually, this could also talk about the fact that you need to learn how to lean onto your partner, because your partner might be able to help you. So if that's the case, just allow your partner and maybe cut back on your ego a little bit. Because Saturn in Cancer are so used to take on responsibility and looking after others. Yeah. And think about it as a reward. Now someone else comes around and wants to give you a helping hand, and you should be accepting that.
Yeah. And also the reverse of that too. So with Saturn being in Sagittarius's 8th house, Saturn can restrict a partner's resources. So there might be some burdens, related to having to be the primary breadwinner. And also maybe just with the Sag rising, maybe there's just a need to learn how to restructure how you go about spending your money. Yeah. So actually my sister has this placement, and so it's very, I think that there's some very present aspects or themes that are occurring in her life. She has that natal Saturn in Cancer. Yeah.
What else came to my mind is that it's becoming more and more popular that the man stays at home with the newborn baby. So they are the ones who stay at home because of maternity leave. Yeah. And that's because of financial approach. Yeah. And if that's the case, and there is some confliction going on because of who is staying at home, the financials should be making the decision. That's what the transit would be telling you.
Yeah. And there might be, I don't know if you said this, but if you didn't, just a burden about caring for the family,
Yes.
Yeah. So.
How about Capricorn rising?
All right. Capricorn rising. So natal Saturn is going to be in the 7th house, and the transiting Saturn Pluto is definitely going to be in their 1st house. So right on their ascendant. So this directly affects them. There might be, but Saturn is at home in Capricorn. So maybe Capricorn rises may be feeling a little bit more like themselves, or maybe they're trying to give themselves a reboot, because the 1st house, it impacts any area of your life. And maybe you're trying to restructure and revise who you are, and also your relationships with others. And hopefully maybe not let your relationships with others be a burden on you. Maybe it's time to start thinking about self, which is totally not Capricorn, because it's all about responsibility and caring for and protecting. So, but maybe this is a difficult sort of a moment in their life when they say, you know what, I have to think about me in this moment, and to restructure my life so that I can then hopefully maybe care and do well for my family and my partner, or my relationships with others in general. Yeah.
I think it's a wake-up call for Capricorn, actually. Leave your old wounds behind, stand up, and be a fighter again. Mm-hmm. See the light at the end of the tunnel. And actually this year you've got great chances to do that. Yeah. So how do you feel about Aquarius rising?
All right, so for Aquarius rising, your natal Saturn is going to be in your 6th house, and the transiting Saturn Pluto is going to be in your 12th house. The 6th house is all about your work colleagues, your daily responsibilities, your bills, your health and wellness. And the 12th is about, retreating. It's about what things that are not seen, right? So maybe this transit could bring about some relationships, secret love affairs, maybe even with the boss, because Pluto rules your 8th, and Saturn is about an older person, the boss. So, and with the South Node, maybe an ending of that secret love affair. So this transit also could bring about some issues with maybe gossiping from behind the scenes with your work colleagues. If this involves maybe your health, and you're trying to take a new approach in getting better, maybe you're looking for some new doctors to take a new approach with a new avenue, seeking balance and trying to improve your health. So 6th house also rules debt, and maybe with the 12th house ruling spirituality, maybe there's this idea of taking a new approach, a spiritual approach, to letting go of karmic debt, your karma.
Yeah, that's right.
Wherever Saturn is, that's about where you have to burn your karma. Yeah.
6th house also rules practitioners. So some of you might be thinking about changing their doctors. And this energy could be talking about the fact that maybe you should. If you are having experience in health issues and you can't see the resolution, ask for a second opinion. Because Saturn natally in the 6th actually is a good position. And it might be just an indication that you are not finding the very first time the right doctor for you. If some of you who have got, let's say, the idea of giving birth at home, maybe actually this could be an indication that you want to have your personal midwife also. Because Pluto is a very much of an 8th house energy, so that also could be the case.
Yeah.
And how do you feel? Pardon?
I said I like that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Wow. And how do you feel about our last sign, Pisces?
All right. So with Pisces rising, your natal Saturn is going to be in your natal 5th, and the transit is going to be happening in your 11th. So the 5th house is all about fun, your things that bring you joy. It's could be speculative businesses, it could be about dating and romance. And the 11th house is about your friends, the house of joy, long-term gains, hopes and wishes. So with Saturn being there might be in your 5th house with regard to, if you have children, there might be some issues with your children regarding their education. And maybe you're wanting to take a new approach with maybe finding them a new school. And you're reaching out to your friends, as a source of help, to maybe help find your children a new school. The 5th house, again, is about, speculative businesses. So if Pisces rising is an entrepreneur, owns their own business, and maybe they're thinking about letting it go, now might not be the best time to do that. It may be best to wait because Saturn and Pluto Saturn can delay. And it also can maybe the gains, if you do sell it, the gains may be reduced. Maybe this transit might bring about a meeting with an old friend, 11th house's friends, or rekindling with an old ex. So it seems like great things could be on the horizon potentially for Pisces rising. What do you have to say?
Maybe just a friend of yours is going to reach out for your help, because Pisces rising sign loves helping anyway. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're going to hear of people you haven't met for millions of years, and they want to get into contact with you. In that sense, just watch out, because Pisces have got a tendency to sacrifice way too much. Unfortunately, we have got a tendency to be used. And you definitely don't want that. If you feel in that way, if you can sniff it, then just release those people out of your life, because that's what's the energy in your 11th house would be suggesting.
You know, I also have one other thing I thought, because Pisces is about the arts, right? And so if they have a creative career and they maybe had some fears about, you know, being creative, now might be the time to, you know, captivate your audience because of the 11th house.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So if they're thinking about doing that, they're, you know, it's transforming their beliefs and restructuring their life and getting out there and trying to gain some, you know, win friends and fans in the creative arena. Yeah.
And maybe they can do that through internet. 11th house rules social media. So it might be just a reminder, put yourself out there, show your face. Even you can organize charity events with 11th house pretty much. And Pisces rising sign would love that. Just to gain more audience, more visibility for yourself. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As we said, this is a series. Next time we are going to be discussing what Libra people can expect. You know, Saturn in Libra. Also, we're going to be talking about those 3 generations who are affected by those. So if you do like the video, you know what to do. Please press like, and then you will see us shortly. Thank you, Barbara, for joining me today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me again, Victor.
See you very soon.
Yes.
See you everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.